And it looks like we have all of our presenters, so I think we are ready to jump in and get started. Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us. This is our project launch for the PWN Organizing for Power, which is our exciting opportunity to do electoral organizing across the United States in a way that we are proud to be able to amplify from the 2018 election, and really excited to be able to move forward in the 2020 election cycle. We know that a lot of organizing takes a lot of preparation, so we're getting started in August in 2019. And we'll have a timeline later on that we'll be able to talk to everybody about, but this is our project launch. And so I'm going to see if Nana actually has a welcome that she might want to say, just to kick us off.
Hey, thank you so much. Sorry, I was just responding to something in the chat box. Hi, everyone. I'm Nana Khanna, Executive Director of Positive Women's Network, She, Her, Hers, based out of Oakland, California. We are so thrilled to see all of you on this webinar. This is the start of our Organizing for Power Road to 2020 program, and I know that you all are just as fired up as we are to make some change in our communities and on a lot of issues that are impacting our lives. And so we are thrilled to see the strong turnout today. We're going to talk, a lot more throughout this webinar about kind of how important this moment is that we're all in this political moment. But I know that everybody on this webinar is not confused that we are literally in the fight for our lives right now, and that the future of, the future of this country, the future of this world, and the future for many of our generations beyond us really depends on what we all roll up our sleeves and do over the next 15 months. And we could not be more thrilled and honored than to be doing this with all of you. So thank you so much for being here. And thanks to Barb and Ebony and all the folks on the staff team who are really holding down this program.
Great. Thanks, Nana. So we're going to just cover a couple of logistics before we really dive into some exciting topics that we're going to talk about today as our project launches. This webinar is being recorded. Everyone in the webinar will be in attendee mode, which means that you are muted so that we can get a clear recording. If you have a question that you would like to ask or clarification, please go ahead and just drop a question in the chat box or raise your hand. We'll go ahead and take you off of mute if you raise your hand, and that way you can go ahead and ask a question or certainly share a thought as we go along. We do have a lot of people on the webinar, which is excellent. Just to let Nana and Ebony know, we have looks like 37 people who have joined us today. So it is a powerful amount of people who've joined us, and it's going to be an incredible opportunity to get ourselves started. So feel free to ask questions, and we will have time for question and answers throughout. Our presenters today are going to be Nana, Ebony, and myself. And as we start to talk a little bit, we'll go ahead and just introduce ourselves. Probably most of you know us, but just in case, we like to kind of just reframe. So I am Barb Cardell. I'm the training director, and the pronouns that I use are they, them, theirs. And I'm going to go ahead and take the first part. And Nana, I think, has already introduced herself, and we'll ask Ebony to introduce herself when we get to the fundraising part, which Ebony is going to bring us home with. So our agenda for today is that we're going to be introducing PWN. We're going to be talking a little bit about who we are, just so that we hold in our mind what our values are and how this supports us and strengthens us as we move forward. We're going to do an orientation to the Organizing for Power project, so that for people who might be a little unclear, this is a chance to get really, really certain about what we're going to be doing, how it's going to play out in your local area, and how it is going to amplify the power that we already have organizing in our areas as we build and ripple out and bring people into our Organizing for Power. We'll have an introduction about electoral organizing. That's the base of this particular project, is we're going to be doing a very specific kind of organizing called electoral organizing, and Nana's going to go ahead and give us a bit of an overview about what exactly that is, so that we're all really clear about that. We'll have question and answers. Then we'll have a skills building session about fundraising. We have asked people to get themselves to Atlanta for our boot camp, and so we want to make sure that people have the skills to be able to do that. And then finally, we'll have a discussion at the end. So about the U.S. Positive Women's Network, we have been around since 2008 when an amazing group of founding members from across the United States, 28 of them, came together in all of our diversity as women living with HIV to really say that we needed to have a group, an organization that had our needs, our desires, and our demands centered in all of the policy that we were going to be working on. We are an advocacy group, and we control our own destinies, and we have done that since our founding in 2008, and we are now 11 years old, which is pretty amazing, and it has allowed us to do a lot of incredible work. Our mission is to prepare and involve living with HIV in all of our diversity in all levels of policy and decision making. So we want to be a part of any conversation that's going to impact us as women living with HIV and our communities as well. And Nana and Ebony, if there is anything that you would like to add as I go through, please feel free to just come off of mute and go ahead and supplement whatever I am presenting on, or whatever any of us are presenting on. So we want to make sure that we share all of our information that we have about PWN, and also in case anyone has any additional follow-up questions. PWN completed our second strategic plan last year, and in it we came up with a couple of really strong core values that fit at everything that we do. And this slide talks a little bit about what that looks like. We say that PWN sees the HIV epidemic, especially as Black, Brown, LGBTQ, transgender, nonconforming, and low income, that these people are disproportionately impacted, and it is a symptom of a larger injustice and inequities. That we organize to build power in our communities that are most impacted by the epidemic, and we center the voices meaningfully involving women living with HIV, and we center the voices of the communities most impacted when we are doing our organizing. Our strategies are around leadership development. We want to make sure that people have leadership skills to be able to go forth and be at these policy tables. We are an issue-based advocacy, that we do our root cause analysis and talk about how issues impact our constituents, our members, and ourselves as well. That we are organizing and mobilizing women across the United States as well as our allies. So PWN always seeks to bring along our allies, who could be people living with HIV, could be our allied partners. And so we organize and mobilize for people who are willing to walk down the path for our policy organizing with us. And we have strategic communications. And as always, all of our work is centered in racial, gender, and economic justice. If you'd like to read a little bit more, you can find us on our PWN website, which is www.pwn-usa.org. And we have our missions, we have our vision, we have our values. We also have a number of other points that we talk about. So as we do our introduction to organizing for power in our road to 2020, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Nana. And Nana, would you like to control the screen, or do you want me to just go ahead and advance slides?
Is it possible for me to advance the next ones?
It sure is.
Okay, cool. Great. So thanks so much for that wonderful introduction, Barb. We are really thrilled to be launching our Organizing for Power Road to 2020 program. As many of you know, and as Barb just said, PWN has for years been building leadership and building power in communities most impacted by the epidemic, hand in hand with many of you. And we are We recognize that the HIV community has been an organized, active community for a long time, a very robust community for a long time. And we're excited to work with you all in taking some of that work to the next level in terms of thinking about how we build our political power together. And so that's really what Organizing for Power Road to 2020 is all about. I don't think I can control it. So maybe if you want to just go to the next slide.
Okay, I think you might need to double click. You want to try it one more time?
Oh, no, I don't have the, oh, okay, maybe, just kidding, thanks. Okay, so first of all, we want to formally welcome our Organizing for Power Road to 2020 teams. So I know that, you know, there was an application process, you all sat down, you had a lot of conversations about what you were going to do, you came back to us, you submitted an application, we had interviews, and we couldn't be more thrilled than to be presenting to you all this badass crew of folks from all around the US. So we have OFP 2020 teams from Alabama, Atlanta, Colorado. We have 2 from Texas, 1 from Dallas, Fort Worth area, 1 from Houston. We have Florida in the house. We got Louisiana in the house. We got Michigan, New York, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, South Carolina. This is really a fabulous, fabulous, strong, and diverse community. And we're going to be, over the next, 15 months or so, we're going to be rolling deep together. We're going to be learning together. We're going to be learning from each other. You all are going to be doing local and state work, kind of on your own, but we are also going to be sharing best practices with each other and learning as a cohort, right? Both in person and virtually. And so we're really excited to build with all of you. We hope you're excited to build with each other, and seeing all this great energy on the chat box. I just know it's going to be an awesome road to 2020 that we're going to be on together. So, so we would love to hear from you all, and you can chime in on the chat box here. Why were you interested in being involved in OFP 2020? Why did you all want to be part of this project? We want to hear this in your own words. So we'll give it a couple minutes for folks to chime in on the chat box so we can see each other's responses. Want to see more organizing in Florida by my own community? Yes. Alicia, oh yes, the one-word answer, the curse word that starts with T. Thanks, Katie. To give people the opportunity to use the power they did not know they had. Yes, thank you, Andrea. To amplify the voices and concerns of Black men living with HIV. Malcolm, yes, absolutely, that is so critical. We know that, Black men are really the most impacted in the US by the HIV epidemic. And that is critically important for all of us to be working together to amplify those voices, to make sure that our needs are addressed. It's important for me as a Black person to vote and for people to vote on RJ. Yes, and Tana, I'm not sure if by RJ, do you mean racial justice or reproductive justice or something else? Feel free to fill us in. To create change, especially when it comes to decisions made about us, want to make changes to the laws that impact trans women. Okay, these are so many awesome answers. I'm not gonna read every single one of them out, but this is beautiful. Thank you for sharing your visions with us. To have a voice, we need to get the power back where it belongs to the people. Want to make a difference, want to show that we care about what's happening. We need to take a stand. Yes, concerned about our state of democracy in the current climate, absolutely. Yeah, these are all fantastic reasons and so important. And that's really what drove us to think about creating this program. So as you all know, there's a lot of stuff going on. This is just sort of the tip of the iceberg, from people with HIV being criminalized, which has been going on for years, to family separations based on HIV status, to string of both rhetorical and policy attacks on immigrant communities that are having deadly consequences for people's lives. Folks have been trying to take away our health care. Some folks refuse to expand Medicaid to our people. You know, a series of like political, policy, and interpersonal attacks on trans communities. We're seeing health injustice and health inequity that needs to be addressed. We see a lot of racial injustice, right? That drives the epidemic and causes especially Black folks and Latinx folks to have worse health outcomes in the U.S. Whether they're living with HIV or not, right? So there are so many reasons, and all of these issues are connected to issues that are on our ballots. They're connected to people that are on our ballots. They're connected to candidates taking particular stances on particular issues and coming with their own set of values and ideologies. And we are really clear about what our values are, and we're gonna, you know, that's going to be a focus of this webinar series as well, is really thinking about how we ground our electoral work in our values. Sometimes people feel like it's hard to make a real difference in the political realm, and that can feel frustrating and really challenging. But it seems clear to me that folks are really focused on, you know, the idea that our lives are on the line and that we can make change together. And so we're going to do that. So Positive Women's Network has an intersectional policy agenda. These are the policy priorities that we look at and that we kind of like use as a lens to guide work. And so they're broad. You know, we believe that every person, like no matter what their gender is, their race, the amount of money they have, their job status, their immigration status, should have access to healthcare. We believe that all people of all HIV statuses and all genders should have our sexual and reproductive rights fully upheld. We believe that our communities, including trans folks and LGB folks, should be safe and free and have the rights to do whatever they want with their bodies. We believe that our communities need to not be criminalized and policed and surveilled. And that's not just about HIV criminalization, but really looking at how Black and brown bodies in this country have always been policed and surveilled, and how the state is very much scaling that up right now, right? And how our folks get viewed as sort of like weapons, and these justifications are used to increase like surveillance and policing and to incarcerate people, right? So our policy agenda also includes things like protecting the safety net. So making sure that folks have Medicaid and have SNAP and have housing, all of these things, and ending violence against our communities. And ending violence, we think of not only as interpersonal violence, but as structural violence, right? Because the systems themselves have been set up to be violent towards us. And so we know that some of these things can be changed through engaging in the electoral process, not all of them. And we're going to talk later about how, you know, elections are not the solution to everything. There's a lot of other work we have to do. But so our approach to electoral organizing is really, you know, understanding that the HIV community has a lot of power. There are a lot of us, not just people living with HIV. There's over 1 million of us in the US, but also there's multiple millions of us who are connected to different kinds of HIV services. If you like even had that 1.1 million people living with HIV in the US, think about how many folks do they know? How many people are in their phone? How many folks live in their building? How many folks are on their block? Who are their family members? We have the capacity to organize and to have a huge impact. And even on like ballot measures, you know, like issues that are on your ballot sometimes are won by a handful of votes. It's not always a lot of votes that it takes to make the difference between an issue that is getting voted on at your city level or your state level. We have the ability to impact, to really influence how these issues get framed and how they're understood by our communities, and then what people do about that when they show up to vote, right? So I think we're all pretty clear about some of what's at stake. And the bottom line is, we are the ones who we've been waiting for. Nobody else is going to do this for us. The HIV community has been doing it for ourselves for a long time. And so, you know, understanding that elections really have consequences, I think we're all very clear about that post 2016, if we weren't previously. PWN has launched a project called Organizing for Power, Road to 2020. This is a nonpartisan project. That means it's not affiliated with any particular political party. This project will train and support teams that are led by women and people of trans experience living with HIV to lead get out the vote efforts in their cities, in their congressional districts, and in their states. And sorry, how do I go back? Oh, there we go. And I think just like one quick thing we want to emphasize about our approach to electoral organizing is that it's different. It's really different to do organizing that comes from the community up on elections, as opposed to many traditional approaches to elections are run by candidates, or they're run by campaigns, or they're run by political parties. And all of those entities, they have their own priorities and their own agendas, and that's okay, you know, they should. But they are not always interested in really making sure that communities are building power, and that's what we're here to do. We understand that we're here to build power. We're here to build power long-term, not just in one election cycle. Our folks are going to show up not just because they're getting to some campaign's number of being able to say they won and get their person in office, but because we understand that we're working for a larger vision, and we understand that elections are a piece of a strategy that incorporates issue-based organizing, that incorporates us really understanding and defining the problems in our communities and the solutions for our communities, and what victory really looks like, right? So, so we're going to be doing a range of activities that Barb will talk about a little more later, and that we'll get into much more depth about on future webinars and at our in-person training. But you know, the bottom line is, we're going to be looking at what are the issues that really impact people living with HIV. And those issues are not just HIV, right? They're healthcare, they're housing, do we have the right to say what we do with our bodies? Are we safe when we leave our homes? So we're going to be analyzing issues. We're going to be cutting these issues together, like looking at how they impact us. We're going to elevate them throughout this election cycle between now and 2020 at the local, state, and federal level. And we're going to organize our communities to understand what's at stake, to understand what candidates are saying about these issues, to make sure that voters know what is kind of going on with what's at stake. And we can persuade people to do things, right? Like, we have the power to persuade candidates to take positions on particular issues. We've all done that. Many of us have done that before. We're going to also increase the number of informed voters who support our issues. That's called building our base, right? And then we're going to turn out our base. And all of that is part of how we win. It's part of how we win, because no matter what happens in November 2020, our work is not going to be done. In fact, in many ways, that is just the beginning. But this is all a piece of building our power together. So I think with that, I'm turning over to Barb for this next section.
Great, thanks, Nana. So, building power, that's what we're going to be doing. Going back to our project and talking about the specifics for our goals, so that we're all very clear about what we're going to be using to accomplish this building for power, kind of taking it from this broader sense of ideas to really applicable and practical ideas and tasks that we're going to be doing as teams. So first up, we're going to elevate issues that are important to people living with HIV in our communities that are most impacted by HIV in the 2020 election cycle. So that's going to be our elevate the issues. Second, we're going to increase voter turnout in communities that are impacted by HIV. So there will be specific skills, strengths, and there will be a webinar that will be entirely about getting out the vote that will talk about how we do this. 3, our goal is to ensure that our folks understand what's on their ballots, that it is important to understand everything, that it is important to vote all the way down the ballot for all of the candidates and all of the issues that are there. Number 4 is that we build concrete skills for people living with HIV to influence elections. And number 5 is that we leverage our organizing power into votes at the ballot box, because we are, yes, in it. We are in it to win it, and especially as we look at, you know, how our lives have been impacted over the last 3 years, we are ready to move forward and to continue to ensure that our voices are heard, and that our communities are a part of identifying what is important to us. So what exactly is this OFP 2020? We have sent the teams letters describing, an invitation letter describing what we see as both the expectations as well as what the benefits are, but we just wanted to go over it in great detail now that we've got our launch and we are ready to dive in. So first we want to say, you know, that this seems like it is a lot of really lofty and hard to do things, but really it can be very, very practical. And the reason why we know that it is practical and that we can accomplish these goals that we covered on the previous slide is that we've done it. In 2018, PWN chapters and members hit the ground and were really influencing regional areas and regional groups and states. We canvassed and we phone banked. We registered voters. We knocked on doors, thousands and thousands of doors. We partnered with historically Black colleges and aid service organizations to register voters. We served as poll watchers. We documented and reported irregularities. And as we did our post-election analysis, we realized that we had helped over 10,000 voters. And so when we figure, and that was something that we ramped up pretty quickly. So when we think about that impact, as we think about the impact that we can have now with this long build and this skills building in all of these incredible areas, we think that we can, certainly, we know we can exceed that. And we know that we can have impact because we have done this. So this is why we are so excited about moving forward for 2020. And why it worked is that people living with HIV are well connected in our communities. We are trusted. We have been sharing messages around U equals U, around access, around quality healthcare providers with other people living with HIV since the beginning of the epidemic. We are the subject matter experts about what impacts us and what is important. And so we are incredibly well connected. People trust us. People trust people that they know. And so the deep connections that we have in our community that we have been building as we have been analyzing issues, as we have been protesting at immigrants' marches, the removal of immigrants' rights marches, we have been developing trust in our communities. That we have our mainstream political parties and those candidates that often ignore our community. Especially as we talk about Black and Brown people, low-income folks, and people who are not stably housed, people who are contending with medical health concerns, chronic illness, substance abuse, and so much more. We know that these are our people. We know that these are the people that we want to be able to organize, that we know how to reach. And oftentimes political parties figure that they are too difficult, too challenging, too intensive, and we know that that is not the case. That these are our communities and that these are people that we know how to talk to because we've been doing this. So the Organizing for Power, or OFP 2020 team activities with those 12 teams that we have engaged will include researching ballot elections and key dates. So there'll be some research that you'll get to do, and we'll have a pretty clear form that you'll be able to report it back on so that we can share that information with not just the core leaders, but also your team. We'll be doing voter registration, education, and turnout. We'll be doing candidate engagement, especially attending candidate forums, bird dogging these candidates, so getting them on the record around issues that are important to us so that if they are elected, we can hold them accountable for what they have promised that has gotten them elected. analyzing candidate platforms and ballot measures, utilizing technology to reach voters, including the minivan and a number of other systems, Hustle, and we've got a lot of technology that is at our fingertips, and we just are going to be able to use it to really amplify and reach those voters who we want to make sure are at the polls. And then we're going to coordinate door knocking and phone banking efforts on the ground. And we're going to support you to do all of this. And so if, I'm going to say this a couple of times, if at any time you feel like you're being asked to do something that you do not understand or you want a little bit more training on, that's what we are here to do. A lot of this has been done successfully for many, many years in other issues-focused groups. Most of it's not been done with communities living with HIV, but we are in this together, and we can always find more information or provide more training if there's an area that people feel like they really don't understand or want to know a little bit more about. So please don't ever feel like you need to reinvent a wheel or identify the wheel or whatever kind of analogy one would make there. So here's our overview, broad overview of our phases. So we have phase one, which is our preparation, and that is the phase that we are launching today, where we are ready to go, and this is August to October, and that is our training, research, and landscaping phase, where we are gathering information, figuring out what we need to know, strategizing about what we're going to really see in our communities and what we want to look for in our communities. Phase two is practice. In October and November, we're going to have our boot camp with our practicum components so that we're going to get together in the room, really have a chance to sit down and talk about what we're planning to do and what skills we need. And if we are developing skills, then we're going to go out and we're going to practice those skills. So we'll have a chance to reinforce our learning because a lot of this is new to most of us. And so we're going to make sure that we have that. Phase three is our implementation. November 2019 to November of 2020, we are going to be running a Get Out the Vote plan. We're going to be implementing our plans in each of those areas. So we believe that we will deeply impact those 12 areas, as well as have some ripple effect into communities that see what we're doing and are interested in learning what we're working on. And then finally, phase four is our evaluation, and that ends in December of 2020. And so after the election, our work is not done. We want to go ahead and create a document about lessons learned, what worked, what didn't work, what we might need to change, because I think that this is going to be a large part of PWN influencing policies as we move forward. So we want to make sure that we gather all of the wisdom and the learning, and we're already starting to have a lessons learned document where we're keeping notes as we move forward so that we can continue to hold the wisdom that we create as a community. So what PWN will offer the Organizing for Power 2020 teams? First step is going to be training and coaching. So there will be a variety of ways that we will have our training and coaching. It will be online, it will be in person, and there will be support both for the online parts as well as the in-person parts throughout the project. We'll create tools, and so if there's something that you feel like, I wish I had a forum that did this, let us know, because if you're thinking about a great forum for something, it will be something that other teams will be able to use as well. And so we'll create template strategies and technology to support development of your Get Out the Vote plan. Some people have already been concerned that they're behind on their Getting Out the Vote plan. You don't need to worry about that. That is November and December, after you start doing your landscaping and gathering the information and thinking deeply about what's going to look, what Getting Out the Vote and this effort's going to look like in your area. Then we'll create the plan so that we can support that. Resources for Organizing for Power teams, meeting their goals and deliverables. We want to be able to provide field grants to support your work on both the primary and the general election. And so there will be resources that we are in the process of securing now as we move forward to be able to support people doing this work. What the team responsibilities are is to participate in the webinars, boot camp, and ongoing coaching. We have an amazing number of people who are on this webinar, and thank you so much for being here. This is where we're going to start doing our learning for our core leads, and then we'll share that learning with the teams as we go forward. Teams will be responsible for developing and implementing a field plan with support from PWN. We're going to ask you to collect and manage data, to submit timely reports as requested, and we're going to keep those reports as simple and quick as possible. And then we will go ahead and participate in evaluation activities afterwards. So looks like we have a question about what field grants are. And field grants are funding opportunities for each of the teams to work in a specific area. And yes, and we have done that in the past in 2018, and the group was able to determine what they wanted to use that grant for based on their field plan, based on the kind of organizing that they wanted to do. And so it could be paying for mileage, it could be providing electronic technology for people who are registering people to vote in an online platform. It can be whatever really speaks to the needs of your particular area. And so that's going to be, yep, Danny, you wanted to go ahead and add something?
Yeah, there is another question about field grants, and I see a few questions are popping up in the chat box. So there, I know that there are going to be a lot of questions probably about the field grants that we will have more clarity on later in this process. What I can say is, like, we are raising money to have like a minimum amount to be able to give to all of the teams. The amount that we're going to be able to raise for each team, sort of like beyond the minimum amount, may depend on how the teams are doing. So it's a little bit of a give and take, right? So it's like by showing that we're having an impact in a particular area, or by being able to say, you know, by being able to tell a funder that, hey, we registered this many voters in this much time in, you know, in Michigan or in Atlanta, that is likely to make a funder more willing to invest more later. So, so it's going to be a collaborative relationship, and yeah, but it's not going to depend on how much you all raise, but it may depend on how the teams are doing with hitting their targets, if that makes sense. And we'll definitely talk more about that, you know, throughout the process of the project.
Giving it a second to see if there are any more questions about the field grants. Looks like there aren't at the moment. All right, so we'll just go ahead and continue back. Thanks, Nana. All right, so here is our timeline for the fall of 2019, because it seems like we've got a lot going on, and we do, but certainly it feels like it's laid out in a way that will hopefully feel manageable, as well as make sense as we're building on our skills as we are learning together. So first one is a pre-assessment survey. So the link will be sent out today, and we are asking that each of the core leads on your team fill out a survey and submit it by August 16th. So we want to be able to see not just how you are as a team, that was the application, but also what specific learning and skills and strengths you have as a core leader. So second up is pre-boot camp webinar series, which is today's our first one, and there are 5 webinars. You should have at least 2 core team members on each of the webinars live. And the reason why we're doing this is that you can ask questions as we go along. And if there's a question that has come up in your team meetings, that you can bring it here, and we can go ahead and talk about it. And then you can go ahead and use the webinars. They are being recorded, but you can use them as a support as you go and you train your team around what we are talking about and what we are developing. 3 is our pre-boot camp assignments, and that's going to be in October of 2019. You're going to have an assignment that's going to be a little bit of this landscaping. So, you know, what elections, elections are happening in your area, what races are you looking at, as well as some other kind of general landscaping questions, as well as some really specific ones about how people register to vote, how you can register people to vote, how if you can be a voter registration drive. A lot of these things vary from state to state, and so you're going to be able to do that research all yourself, and it'll be really specific to your team, and we will support you in doing that. Finally, fall, point number 4 is going to be boot camp. We're going to arrive on October 27th and depart on November 1st in Atlanta. There will be 4 core team leads from each team who will be able to attend. Only 4, unfortunately. We wish that we could have everybody come and join us in Atlanta, but we will only be able to support 4 team leads. You'll receive its form to complete, which will be out by the end of August, and we ask that it be submitted by September 24th. That will have participant teams and the attendance details on it. And it looks like we have a question going on in the chat box, and I'll just stop here at the end of this slide. So if people can go ahead and address questions to all panelists and attendees, that would be great, because then we can go ahead and see everyone can see what's in the chat box as opposed to just the panelists. And so that is something that you would select in the chat box under the to bar. It can either be to all panelists, to someone specifically, or to all panelists and attendees. And so if you select that, everyone can go ahead and see. I would say if the team, a question about what can happen if a team cannot make it to the boot camp due to prior engagements already, it would be a good idea to get in touch with Nana or myself and see if we can, because it is a requirement that each team send four members. So it's sort of a no more, no less than 4 members, because we want to make sure that we have this opportunity to do this really intense learning, and that you can support each other when you go back to your teams and are using this as an opportunity to teach your team members about this. Yeah, thanks, Nana. All right, then we have our post-boot camp preview, so just a little bit of what we're going to be doing after we finish our boot camp in October. In November, we're going to start our group coaching. There's going to be a minimum of 1 group coaching per month, and as things heat up and intensify, we'll probably have more, especially as we get closer to the election dates, because there's going to be a lot of skills that we're going to probably need to discuss, things we're going to need to talk about, as well as support that people are going to want as we start moving a bit faster in 2020. So in December of 2019, all the field plans will be finalized. Then we'll get a little bit of a break for the holidays. January 2020, we begin work on the primaries and on the caucuses. And this is going to be an opportunity to really influence a lot of these conversations and these candidates early on. So we want to make sure that we capitalize on that. In spring of 2020, we're going to start working on the general, and so the general election. So July 13th to the 16th is the Democratic National Convention, and August 24th to the 27th is the Republican National Convention. And so we'll probably have some organizing around that. November 3rd, 2020 is the election. I always feel like I should do a drum roll. It's going to be the general election, and then in November and December of 2020, we will debrief and evaluate. If you want to know what's the primary calendar, when your primary is for your particular state, you can go ahead and click on this link here. We will go ahead and share the recording as well as the slides with everyone afterwards, so that you can go ahead and use this to develop training for your team, as well as look up the links. And actually not develop, sorry, to hold the training for your teams, because the training's already developed. All right, organizing for Power 2020 webinar series. They all start at 4 o'clock Pacific time, 7 o'clock Eastern time. We had to shift a couple of the dates around after we sent out the original invitation. So the August 22nd webinar, which is our second webinar, has shifted to August 20th. And the September 12th webinar has shifted to September 10th. Because there is a Democratic debate on the 12th, and we would like to have as many people able to follow along and pay attention. So here are the dates that we have for our upcoming webinars, as well as a brief description of what's going to be covered. So today we're doing our project orientation. August 20th is centering racial and gender justice in electoral organizing. September 10th is going to be winning on our issues by organizing the vote. September 26th, components and structure of our Get Out the Vote campaigns. October 10th is starting to create a plan, the research and the preparation that you need to do as you get ready for our Get Out the Vote. October 24th will be a pre-boot camp assignment that will be due before you show up in Atlanta so that we can go ahead and collate it all and have it ready to go. But as we hit the ground in Atlanta to start having our practical conversations as well as some of our deeper learning. About our Organizing for Power 2020 boot camp, it's going to be a 4.5-day training on our organizing. We're going to be training on skills and technology. We keep saying 4 core leaders, but we need to have 4 leaders from our team. You can't bring anybody else other than those 4 leaders, and we ask that you bring 4 so that we can share the knowledge with as many people as possible in each of the areas that can go back and be the experts to then help train teams. We need to have the confirmation of names and logistics by November 24th. The boot camp is in Atlanta. We're asking people to arrive by the 27th. And depart on the 1st of November in the afternoon, so we'll have a half day on Friday. We're going to actually start off on Sunday night with a 6 p.m. start, and we'll have dinner, and we'll be able to go ahead and start orienting people so that on Monday when we're getting ready to go ahead and start our learning, we will have a lot of the logistics and a lot of the housekeeping details out of the way. But it'll also give us a chance to kind of come together and celebrate and to start building our enthusiasm and our energy. PWN is going to be covering the hotel rooms, all the food, all the training costs. Organizing for Power teams are covering travel to Atlanta for the participants and everything that includes. And so that'll be parking, transportation to the hotel, or transportation to the airport, transportation to the hotel. And Ebony will talk about how you can have some fundraising ideas. All right, so I'm going to turn it back over to Nana, and I'm going to give you control back of the screen.
Okay, great. I also know that we've been dropping a lot of information, so I want to just take a minute to see if there are any questions. Okay, I see like a question about what's the technology. You know, there's going to be a bunch of technology, Shanika, so if it's okay, if we can hold that question, you're on the right track. It's going to be about, you know, mass texting. It's going to be use of the voter database. It's a bunch of different things, but it's quite a long conversation. So we'll definitely address that at a later time, and we'll be training on it at the boot camp. Other questions about what we've talked about already? How far is the hotel from the, okay, so all the information about the boot camp logistics is going to be in the logistics letter. We're going to get that out to you within the next couple of weeks. So by around August 20th, you'll have that letter, which will have all the details about logistics so that you can make your travel arrangements and plans. And that will include addressing questions like what to bring and all of that sort of stuff. So it's great that folks are already, you know, thinking about getting prepared for the boot camp. And we do have a general OFP email that you can send questions to also. So I'm just going to put that in the chat box for you all. If you have like, you know, kind of urgent logistical questions that need to be addressed before the 20th of August, you can send an email to this email address and we'll get back to you to address them. So great. Okay. So yeah, just briefly, what is and isn't electoral organizing? So we just want to talk a little bit about this. So what is electoral organizing? It's a really specific form of organizing. It's around, it relates to elections, but you know, as we kind of said earlier, there's a difference between traditional electoral organizing and what is called integrated voter engagement. And what we'll be doing is integrated voter engagement, which we will explain more in a future webinar. But what it basically means is that we're integrating engaging voters and engaging candidates into a larger strategy that is about issue advocacy, that is about organizing our communities, building leadership in our communities, and building our political power together. And so electoral organizing includes all of these strategies that that address how, you know, voters are contacted, registered, who actually gets to vote, what do they know about what's on their ballot. And electoral organizing is also connected to the election calendar, right? So it's working on these cycles that are kind of set by election dates, including like deadlines and including when elections happen. So we wanted to just ask you all a few questions about like what you think is electoral organizing. And so I think we'll just go over a couple of these. So is this electoral organizing, mobilizing to stop a Supreme Court nominee? What do folks think about that one? The first one here. Andrea says no, that's correct. It is not, that is not electoral organizing. Okay, let's look at another one. What about holding a candidate forum about healthcare issues? Is that electoral organizing? See a few yeses, I see a no, I see another more yeses. The yeses have it, that is correct, that is electoral organizing. And what about this one? I know this is an issue that a lot of folks are working on, repealing or modernizing state laws around HIV disclosure. I see a mix of responses here, yeses and nos. Some say it is, some say it isn't. So this is an example. This is issue-based advocacy, but it is not electoral organizing, because it's really more a policy or legislative advocacy campaign, not an electoral campaign. Now that doesn't mean that your HIV decriminalization work couldn't also look at electoral factors, like who's, you know, which elected officials are sitting on particular committees, and are they going to be up for re-election, and could elections be used as a pressure point to get them to make certain commitments, right? So there are ways to use electoral organizing to support issue-based advocacy, but in and of itself, like repealing or reforming or modernizing state laws is not itself electoral organizing if it's happening through legislative advocacy. Great. So yeah, these are the just quick answers if folks are interested, and we will be sending these slides out afterwards. You'll also have access to the recording. But yeah, anything from, you know, making sure folks know their voting rights and they're registered, and fighting issues around restrictions on voter ID laws, which are usually, you know, racist and designed to suppress the vote in particular communities. Those are all examples of electoral organizing. A lot of the issue-based advocacy work many of us do is not really electoral organizing, although it can be connected, and elections have consequences for our issues. So I think, oops, oh no, sorry. So just a quick overview of everything we just said. I think you all get this, right? Like, what are we gonna be doing as OFP 2020? We're gonna be analyzing our political landscape. We're gonna be elevating the issues that matter to our communities. From now until November 2020, we're going to be looking at how candidates are and aren't taking stances on our issues and where we can push them. to take stances. And when I say candidates, I mean at every level. As Barb said before, you know, up and down the ballot. We know that sometimes the people who have the most direct impact on our lives, they're not always in DC, right? Many of them are in our own cities and our own communities. There are DAs and there are prosecutors and there are the judges who actually decide whether somebody goes to prison. So we'll be looking at all these things. We'll be analyzing ballot measures and educating our community about them. And we'll be getting out the vote. So we'll be registering voters, engaging voters, educating them. We'll be doing, you know, different things like issue identification and persuasion, and we'll talk about that all a lot more later, but talking to voters about particular issues. And ultimately, we'll be making sure our communities, our folks, are connected, are engaged in the 2020 election, and that in January 2021, whenever all these new folks are coming into their various offices, that they know who our people are, because we were in touch with them from now until then. And we talked to them about what was on our minds. They saw us show up in legislative sessions. They saw us show up in the election cycles and at their forums. And they know that they need to be accountable to us when we talk to them about issues from Medicaid to reproductive rights, right? So I think with that, I am going to go ahead and turn it over to the amazing Ebony Turk, who I think folks mostly know, but Ebony is going to introduce herself. So Ebony is our awesome membership engagement coordinator based out of Dallas, Texas, and is going to talk to us about tools to help folks get to the boot camp, because we know that, you know, getting yourself to Atlanta is not a small ask. We recognize that we're asking you all to do something, to commit, you know, to commit some time and resources yourselves.
Hi, everybody. It is so exciting to see all of you guys on this webinar. I am so excited to start this. My name is Ebony Turk again. I'm the Membership Engagement Coordinator. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And let's jump into this. So you have to get to Atlanta. So because you have to get to Atlanta, we want to give you some tips on how to fundraise for your team to make sure you all get there. So what's grassroots fundraising? It's when individuals or small groups raise money from the local community. And anybody can do it, but of course it takes planning and it takes work, right? So the goals of what I'm going to do today is to make sure this presentation is to make sure you get to the Organizing for Power in-person training. We want to discover where you can get money from, where it is, where it might be, develop effective, persuasive conversation skills that encourage people to donate to you, identify strategies you can use to engage people to give, and create a personal fundraising plan that achieves the best possible outcome with the least amount of effort. So how do we get what we need? We hear this all the time because we're advocates. You tell your story. So this should be very easy for most of us because we are used to drafting stories and telling our stories. We want to make sure that when we are drafting a message that we tell people who we are, and that's including who we are as a person, the organization we're working for, how this will benefit the community, why you going to OFP, why you being a part of this team benefits the community, why you need to be there. You want to let them know your goals. What will you do when you get back, and what do you plan to do in the future? Because if you are asking for something, you want to make sure you give them something back as well. So you want to draft your story so you can make sure you're drafting a persuasive argument for them to give you money. Not argument, but you just want to persuade them to give you the money. So I want you guys to remember that 85% of people who can remember their last donation report that they gave because they were asked. 50% of the people do not remember the name of the organization to which they donated, but 90% of the people remember something about the person who asked them, even if the person was a complete stranger. So what that tells us is people remember people. They remember the people that are asking them. So your story is your personality, your why, your what you're going to do, your, who you are. And they will remember that when giving. So make sure you make your story a good one. Why will people give you money? Because you've made your case, right? We just talked about it. You've told them who you and your team are. You've told them what PWN USA mission is. You told them what you will be doing, the work you'll be doing, who will help, what still needs to be done in your community, what's the current challenges, how they can become involved by helping you. If you help me get to this training, I'll come back, I'll report, we'll train, do some trainings in the community, we'll work with the community, and we'll make sure you know our progress. So making a case for your team provides a foundation for future fundraising as well. So you guys will probably or may want to fundraise in the future. I know many of you who are a part of PWN chapters, you will want to fundraise in the future. So it's great for you to create that relationship and provide that, make your case. So after you've made your case, you don't want to forget your acts. You want to make sure you've communicated your need. You've told your story. Now you ask for what you need specifically. And it depends on what plan you've made. You want to make sure you give them options. They can give cash donations, they can possibly give check, or they can purchase a plane ticket. So you want to make sure you give options. Oops. Uh-oh. I don't know how to go back. I'm so lost. I'm sorry.
That happened to me too.
How do you go back? Oh, thank you, Barb. All right. So here's some types of donations. So of course, a person can give financial donations, checks, cash. They can donate to a GoFundMe or whatever type of online cash donation tool you use. They can also give in-kind donations. So sometimes people have a lot of miles. People who travel a lot, they have lots of miles, and they'll donate their miles to you. Or, because they can't purchase the ticket for you with miles, but they can donate their miles to you. So they can donate miles. They can purchase a ticket for you. Later on in this presentation, we'll learn about different events. And for different events, they can donate foods and drinks for you, or items for events for you to fundraise. So types of effective fundraisers are crowdfunding. So that's you're putting out a message to social media. You're sending emails out to your email contacts. And one that I've seen recently is one of my friends was able to get her fundraising letter in the church announcements. And because it was in the official church announcements, all of the people came up and started giving money. So she was able to fundraise that way. Of course, family and friends. So a really good tool and a really easy tool that people don't use often enough is you can write down a list of your family and friends, the closest ones to you. I would say make a list of 50 if you can. And you go through that list and you call and you make your case to everybody. And you ask them, how much ever you can give, please give. That's a personal touch. It's a personal phone call. It's somebody in your family. It's somebody who loves you. It's one of your friends. But you have to make the case just like you're making a case to anybody else. So you have to tell them why, what you'll do, how this will benefit the community, things like that. But yes, make a list of the family and friends and start calling them. You guys could create a date to make it fun. Create a date for everyone to meet up and have a phone banking party. That makes it fun. You guys can maybe order some pizza, have, you know, some drinks or whatever, not you know, pops or water or whatever kind of drinks you drink, and just make it a fun gathering for you guys. You know, you can laugh in phone banks that I've done. It's always interesting to laugh in between calls about what people say and what people do. So it's fun to do it together. And then here are your some social media options. You know, when you use Facebook, it's always best to post a photo and a message. Photos actually get more, they come up more in the algorithm. So if you post a photo and a message with your donation link. So if you're doing GoFundMe or you're using your Cash App or your PayPal app, put all of that in your message. Don't make your message too long, but quick and to the point, and utilize your donation link. Ask people to share it with their friends as well. In Instagram, you know, that's a photo app anyway. So you post your photo, and then underneath you could type a hashtag, which we'll share with you later, and a donation link. Or your Cash App or your PayPal or whatever you're using. Snapchat, I didn't mean to leave Snapchat in there, but if you guys are having a fallback, you can use Snapchat and Snapchat it and say, we raising money, send money to us. Any events you're having, you can use Snapchat. And Twitter is the same thing. You can support, put a message on Twitter, make sure you add your donation link and your hashtag. And that's a good way to leverage social media. So fundraising strategy. So of course you want to create a letter. Oh, go back there, Barb, if that's where you just, because I can't, yeah. I don't know, wait, is this the, could you go back? Yeah, thank you. I don't know. There we go. Okay, so types of effective fundraisers. Events are also good. So you can host a themed house party. These are always fun. This actual picture I have up here, this Leggings and Martini party, is a party that I hosted, and it was a blast, and I've done many of them since. People love themes. People love to, you know, dress up. So I looked up a few days that's coming up, and these are just examples of things you can do. So August 24th is National Waffle Day. You can have a waffle and wine party or a waffle and wig party, because you know us ladies love our wigs. You can have August 28th is National Bow Tie Day. You can have a brims and bow tie party, so hat brims and bow ties. That's always fun. And then September 18th is HIV/AIDS Aging Awareness Day. Some of you guys may be already having events in your area for this, so you can use that if you want. Or you can have an Age and Fabulously party. September 18th is also National Cheeseburger Day. So you can have a cheeseburger and checkers party or a cheeseburger and cards party. And September 24th, look at that, is National Voters Registration Day. You can plan a voter registration party with a college group, with any type of group. But I said college group because a lot of, you know, kids coming out of high school don't register to vote right away. So planning a voter registration party would be great. And of course, you can have any type of card party. Card parties are always fun, and I know in the Black community they are huge. You can sell dinners. That's something else. If you know how to cook, sell you some dinners. Just please don't hurt nobody, but sell you some dinners. You can have a yard sale. So I've done this too, and it was very successful. I actually made over $1,000 doing this. I collected items from co-workers and friends, that they didn't want anymore. I told them to do some spring cleaning in their house, bring me all of their stuff, and I put it all on my front yard. You guys can do that. You guys can get put together as a team, collect stuff that you guys don't use anymore, and ask friends, ask family, ask co-workers for their stuff, and sell it. You'll be surprised at how quickly that money adds up. And then there's always the classic car wash. Some people love the classic. So you guys, if you want to do it as a team, you can get out there and wash cars. So a few different strategies are: make sure you create a letter that you can customize for specific groups. And we actually have an example letter that could be customized that you can get on our website. You can create an email that you can customize for specific people as well. If you want to send an email, you can create a custom one. You can create one and then customize it as you send it out to different people. Everybody in the team can use the template, and you can just send it out to different people. A hashtag for social media, PWN Power 2020. Of course, because we are going to be powerful. We are powerful, and we're going to be even more powerful in 2020, right? So you want to make sure you are prepared, and you want to be consistent. That's important in fundraising, being consistent. You want to create an outreach schedule. So you want to create a schedule to launch your fundraising plan, which hopefully will be soon, because we have I believe a little like 6, 7, or 8 weeks. You want to create a follow-up date for people. When you're asking, you always want to follow up with them. If they say yeah and they haven't responded, then it's okay to give a friendly follow-up. And you want to create a social media schedule. If you plan on fundraising on social media, you want to make sure you put the message out at least 3 times a week. 3 times within a week, not a day. You want to make sure you have a clear way to donate. So if you are putting information out on social media, in an email, in a letter, you want to make sure you have the link. You want to make sure you have, I would say, give people options as well. Yeah, give people donating options. Cash App, PayPal, send a check, give you cash, give them options, because everybody doesn't use everything. So those are, and remember, consistency is key. So keys to success: know the facts and details about organizing for Power 2020. Even if somebody, you meet somebody, where you have to tell them about it. You want to know the facts. You want to know what you're talking about so you can convince them to give you what you need. Communicate with emotion, intensity, urgency, and passion, because that's where we are in real life. Like this is intense how we're living right now, and we need to change it. Create your fundraising plan as a team. It's always better to work as a team. So preparation plus your persuasive acts equals money to get you to OFP 2020, to make our mission in 2020. So our donor basics, you want to keep track of and thank your donors and others who help you raise the funds. You want to make sure you write down names, emails, addresses, so you can send thank you messages afterwards. Whether it's thank you letters, thank you emails, thank you texts, you want to make sure you thank people. Continually develop your mailing list, even if you're not doing mailings yet. So the people who are donating to you, you want to keep their information, because it's important, because typically people who donate to you once will donate again. And you can possibly include them in, they want to get involved, they want to volunteer. You guys you're guys going to be doing get out to vote work. So you're going to need bodies on the ground. So collecting this information is going to be very important so you can keep them informed. When working as an individual or small group, take advantage of your ability to interact personally with your donors. So if you're having a party, you want to work that party, you want to talk to those people individually. As many if the team can come, the team should be there. so you all can work that party and talk to those people and get that money. Get to know them. This will encourage them to stick around for the long haul. Tell your supporters specifically how you're using the money they donated. Send them updates on how their money was used. As an example, a personal note with the photo of any progress made. So when you guys are in Atlanta, take some, everybody always takes pictures, but take pictures and get a good one of your team and send it to them so they can know that you guys were there, you guys are getting trained, and you guys are using their money for good. A person who feels appreciated will always do more than expected. My slide's not moving, Barb. Thank you. Where do we start? So I just wanted to give you guys a clear place to start because I know it's a lot of information. So your first step would be to decide if you are going to work together as a team or fundraise individually. Hopefully you're working together as a team because you are a team. This is team sport. We want you to do everything as a team. But I do understand some people, I mean, you guys might decide like, I got my ticket, and you guys are good. But if you are fundraising, work together as a team. Research the cost of your trip depending on your needs and goals. So research the cost of your ticket, know how much it's gonna take to get you to and from the airport, and any other needs you may have. If you are a person who's in need of a mobility scooter while they're there, make sure you get the price of that so you'll know what you need exactly, so you guys will know exactly the amount of money you will need to fundraise. Identify what you want to highlight in your persuasive acts because you all can use the same script if you need to. You'll just modify it for yourself, but you all can use the general same script. List your potential donors. So I know I said write down the names of your family and friends, but you also need to write down the names of the people you plan on asking. Have a plan on who you plan on asking. If you plan on asking agencies, if you plan on asking doctors, if you plan on asking lawyers, whomever you plan on asking, write it down so you'll know exactly who you need to send messages to and how you need to get those messages to them. Remember, everybody does not use social media. Some people are, they respond better via email. Some people respond better via text, and some respond better via phone. Remember that when you're making this list, who responds, how do they respond? Because you want to contact them on the medium that they respond better to. Decide on your fundraising strategies. Make sure you have more than one. So you can do phone banking, you can do social media, you can do a party, you can do multiple things at once to make sure you guys get, maximize your potential of getting what you need. And then start creating a plan of action. This is the most important step. Don't just go at it. Make a plan, because when you have a plan, you are far more prone to succeed. The action plan gives you detailed steps that must be taken in order to reach your goal, and it tells you who will do each step, when it will be done, and any resources that are needed. Work your plan. And I'm going to turn this back over to Nana.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Ebony, for that great presentation. That was awesome. I really am inspired by the fundraising strategies and definitely stoked to check out some of these cheeseburger parties. That's my favorite. So one thing I do want to say about fundraising, just as you all are thinking about how to do this, as someone who does a lot of fundraising, one thing I know is that money can complicate relationships. And so what my advice to you all as teams is to have really clear conversations about what is your decision-making process as a team about who's going to the boot camp, so that the folks who are going to the boot camp, that decision-making is not just driven by like who can raise money, right? You all are in this together. So if the team knows, like, we need these are the 4 people who are going to be available and hold kind of different roles on our team and are going to be able to bring the full picture back to the rest of us, then it's sort of like the team's job to think about how to get those 4 people there. So we want to encourage you to just think about this and be intentional about it, because we are going to be in this together, and the dynamics that you all set up now in terms of your decision-making processes and the clarity and transparency with which you all work together is probably going to impact all of the work that you're able to do together over the next 15 months, right? So I hope that makes sense. So I just want to invite you all to, like, as a team, have a conversation and say, this is how we want to, like, get our folks there. And this is, you know, we're going to try to do it in whatever way. Even if you're having individual fundraising, even if you're doing individual fundraising outreach, that would be my advice to you. So, and if we can, you know, help you all think about how to figure out who should come, we can do that. But basically, instead of focusing so much on individuals, you can just be pricing and thinking about, like, what's the cost of getting 4 people from our city to Atlanta? And, like, the fundraising can already start before you know for sure who those 4 people are, right? So those are options. So to that point, I think, you know, it seems like we are in hopefully a really good place. I did see one hand up in the question in the chat box, but it seems to be gone. I think Gina had her hand up. So it seems like we're pretty ready to roll, and we hope you're ready to rumble with us. So we know that, you know, over the next year plus, we're going to be together, working on building our positional power, making sure our issues are part of the candidate discussions. We have another set of debates coming up, as Barb mentioned earlier, in just over a month. We're actually going to be doing some organizing around that and sharing some tools with all of you so that we can be collectively raising our voices before and during those debates about issues, right? We know that in the process of doing all of this, we have to protect ourselves and we have to protect our communities. A lot of folks are really in danger in various ways right now. And so organizing is not only about what we accomplish, but it's also how we hold each other throughout this process. And so we're determined to make history with all of you. And we know that that is going to be totally possible over the next 15 months. So I think we wanted to wrap up with this quote by the amazing Wahida Shabazz El, PWN's first organizing director, who just retired last week. But we continue to work, you know, in her name and her legacy. She has taught and inspired many of us and mentored many of us, including myself. And she says, we fight for our rights and our safety. Without them, we die on the inside. When our voices are silenced on the outside, we disappear. And we refuse to be ignored. Our lives matter, and we will save ourselves. And so I want to go ahead and turn it back to Barb to close us out with some next steps.
Great, thank you, Nana, and thank you, Ebony. So we have our next steps, just reminders about what we have coming up within the next month. So August 16th, please have the pre-assessment done by all of the core leaders and turned in. August 20th is our next webinar. That's a Tuesday. It's going to be about centering racial and gender justice in organizing. And a reminder, we need to have at least 2 leaders from each team on that call live. August 22nd is completing the team training on electoral organizing with the information from today's training, and we'll send out an email about that. That is also the date of the next getting ahead of myself. Then we have September 10th, which is the 3rd Organizing for Power webinar, which is about winning on our issues by organizing the vote. And then a little bit further out is the September 24th. We're asking that you confirm participants' name and attendance for the boot camp. So that gives everybody a little bit of an idea about the next steps for our next month as we move forward. And we'll just stop and see if we have any questions or discussion that people would like. You can go ahead and put it in the chat box, or if you raise your hand, I can go ahead and unmute you so that you can go ahead and ask a question in person.
Barb, before we hang up, I want to make an announcement, but it doesn't have to be on the recording.
Okay, okay, gotcha. So we'll see if we have any questions.
How's all this sounding to folks? We ready to rumble?
Looks like we got a couple of great comments in the chat box. Yes, we are ready to save ourselves, and let's go 2020. Yes! Yes.
Yes.
Fantastic. Yep, looks like everybody is as excited as we are, which is great to see, and I appreciate everybody for. Yeah, now all of a sudden it's going fast and furious. It's like, are you excited, people? Yes, we are. Fantastic. So looks like they're just everybody sharing their enthusiasm, and there aren't any questions. Nobody's raised their hand. So looks like we have answered everything. Here are all of our contacts. If you would like to talk a little bit more about doing fundraising, we know this was a very short introduction. Ebony has offered to partner with anyone who has some additional questions. And as always, please feel free to reach out to Nana, myself, or Ebony if there's anything that we can do to help support you, help support your team. We are here because this is the major work that we're going to be doing, and it is so, so important. So with that, unless there are any questions, yep, our general contact email, if you have any questions, is ofp2020@gmail.com, and that will get to all of us, and we can go ahead and help. So last chance for questions or comments. Looks like you've got a lot of enthusiasm, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to stop the recording. Then thank you all for joining us, and Ebony has her announcements once we stop the recording. So,
hi guys, I just have a lot of you here